down. We started our little international page, and I said I'd be happy if we got 100 people. A few months later, we are teetering on the 900 number, fastly coming to 1,000. People all over the world are loving a place to call home.
Excuse
There's
me, Susan.
yes.
I can't actually see Marta at the moment.
What should I do?
I'm not sure.
I can see you.
You can see us.
I
Okay.
Yeah,
think
can I?
underneath the picture there is an icon with a video camcorder sign. If you want to click on that, Vanessa.
Yeah, no, it is clicked, and I am.
Here you go. You're coming now. There you go.
Okay. Okay. I can't see you, but you can see you? Can everybody else see Marta? Okay, Marta, you there?
You're a little bitty box at the bottom with a
Okay, let's
cover in your face.
as long as you guys can see Marta. Marta, I know you have a limited amount of time. I just want to tell you that on our page there's a lot of incredibly wonderful discussion, and I'm going to go with the first question, and that is that we are all really taken with Sarah. I'm an observant Jew and am completely blown away by the authenticity with which you portray Sarah. Shabbat, mikveh, the funeral. I'm curious to know if you had any exposure to Orthodox Judaism before you became Sarah Adams, and how did you learn so much so authentically?
Well, my brother-in-law is Jewish, so my sister's married to a Jewish man. She hasn't converted herself, but so I spend a lot of time with Dan's family. A lot of both his grandmothers were in the Holocaust and survived, and in fact, his grandmother and grandfather met in a camp and stayed together and had the rest of their family. One of his brothers is married to a woman who converted, so I spent a bit of time with her. I don't think Sarah is Orthodox. I think she's converted, and she is more non-Orthodox. So she's not rigorous. She doesn't, she's not Orthodox.
She's observant.
She's observant. Thank you for that word. And so I watched a lot of real documentaries. I wasn't really interested in any of the fictionalized American accounts of the Holocaust. In fact, I found them really difficult to watch because of all the true research I'd done in documentary and various novels like Primo Levi's Surviving Auschwitz. They hit me so hard, the fictionalized events, I couldn't breathe, and I'd have to turn them off, because I think they over-sensationalized it to the point of being unbearable. I listened to Shoah for hours. I used to go into the Jewish Museum here in Sydney and just listen to them speak and bear witness. And I felt from very early on that that's what Sarah wanted to do, was to bear witness to the horrors and not necessarily relive them or feel like she's a victim of them, but rather she is a survivor, and that is something that she can't cry about because everyone else died around her.
How did you learn the Hebrew? Your blessing of the Shabbat candles and the other places where your Hebrew is pretty good.
Thank you. Well, my father's Dutch, so I've grown up around other languages, although he didn't speak it because when he moved to Australia he was told not to, but my grandmother certainly did. So I had a sort of ear for language, I think. And then I took it very seriously. I thought, if I'm going to speak Hebrew, I need to know how to speak Hebrew. So I spent a long time listening to recordings. We have a gentleman who helps us with that. And then I would sit with my brother-in-law and I would say it over and over and over until he was like, yeah, that's not so bad. So it's a very important part of who she is. And I think representing that community, it's a big responsibility.
Well, you've done an awesome job, and the people in Israel who love this show give you very high marks. Um, you mentioned your Dutch background. With that, I want to invite Anton van Dijken, who is your super fan in Holland. Anton, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Marta.
Hi, Anton. How are you?
I'm great. Greetings from the Dutch fans. They all
Thank
love
you.
you.
Heel goed.
Yeah. We are very curious. Your Dutch background, you already mentioned that. How is it still visible in your own life? And for example, would you consider visiting Holland to show your children your Dutch heritage and your husband?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
can you tell something about it?
The first time I went to Holland, I was 23, that I could remember. I'd gone when I was younger. My great-grandmother was still alive, living in Bozegem, which is where my great-uncle still lives, in a thatched roof house that they were all born in.
Yeah.
And it really, I didn't really fit in Australia for many years. I mainly stayed in the theatre because I couldn't really get a job on screen. People would look at me and I didn't quite fit the Australian model of being sort of slight and vulnerable and sweet. And so when I arrived in Holland, I remember looking around at all these cheeky, well-heeled, with very good sort of cheekbones and facial structures.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is my home. This is where I'm from. And I think going there helped me understand what I did have to offer this industry. And that was a really strong, no bullshit, but also quite cheeky. The Dutch are incredibly cheeky people who understand storytelling, and it's central to their joie de vivre, I think. So yeah, I suddenly became quite confident. I think I brought that back, and I thought, no, I can be a woman in this country that's been brought up in this culture and yet have what I look like be okay. So it was a big turning point for me, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question. But.
Well, mostly, but would you consider visiting again?
Of course, yeah. My children have to come there. It's just they're not quite old enough yet to fully appreciate it. And also I've been shooting now the various shows I do for quite some time. So I'm just waiting for a break.
Yeah.
Europe's first on our lips.
When do you sleep, Marta?
Yeah. It's a good question. No, I get a good 8 hours. That's all you need.
Excellent. I'm going to call Fran Simmons, who's another super fan from England. Fran, meet
Hi.
Marta.
Hi, Marta.
Hi,
there.
Fran.
Hi. You're really good in your performances at conveying various emotions, just in your facial expressions, and love, pain, anger. And I just wanted to know how you prepare yourself to express those feelings to the viewers, and how difficult it is to get into a zone, especially in some of the more sort of intimate scenes, if you like. How do you sort of channel your own self into projecting that to the viewers?
For me, acting's all about the other person, the person you're acting with. I don't enjoy working with actors who work in isolation and think that everything that they do comes from within themselves, because it doesn't seem to translate possibly across the screen. So I look inside the other person and I try and find a way to affect them that is a surprise, especially when the camera's rolling. So try not to give it away in the rehearsal. And I think you put down a solid amount of background work. So for Sarah, for instance, a lot of the research I did that I was talking about earlier, you layer it in and then you have to let it go. And you have to actually not want to talk about it. It's a little bit like being drunk. When you're drunk, you pretend you're not drunk. So when you're traumatized, you try and cover the trauma and not go there. So for me, that's a really important part of acting. But really, it's about the other person. So I don't think I can do anything to affect you unless I affect them, and vice versa, that they're listening and receiving you, because it's through them that you also feel sad for Sarah, or you think she's beautiful, or... So I'm constantly saying to Brett Climo, who plays George, you need to think I'm really beautiful.
Oh,
Can you just up the beauty, like in your eye thing? But, I do a lot of scenes with Roy, Frankie J. Holden.
Mhm.
And he's the most giving, kind, genuine human being you'll ever meet. And so when I talk about the war with him, or about my feelings for George, he looks at me with such empathy and care and love. My eyes are reflecting that, if you like.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that's what I give to the audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So preparation it's less about preparation and more about the magic in the moment.
Oh,
That's what I aim for.
thank you.
Marta, you mentioned the relationship between Sarah and Roy, and it's such a beautiful, pure, loving relationship that we all really love. We had Bevan Lee last week, who spent a long time with us and took so many questions. One of the things that he said that really we have had long discussions on the page about it is he said that Elizabeth and Sarah were having a platonic love affair.
Yes.
And we saw the relationship go from being very antagonistic to being a mother-daughter relationship where Elizabeth, who seems like is a very reserved person, when we see her take Sarah's hand when Sarah is mourning Renee, it's very touching. Can you tell us a little bit about the evolution of the relationship and how you were able to go from being on opposite sides on every issue imaginable to really coming together and finding a place where you could really love and respect each other?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I auditioned for Sarah, I auditioned on my own, and then I was brought in and I auditioned again, and then they brought in Elizabeth. And I knew in that moment that if that relationship didn't work, I wouldn't be playing the role. Noni already was playing Elizabeth. And already way back then, I remember I walked in and I met an actor. I met someone who knew how to work inside a scene, work with someone else, who had so much history behind her. I mean, her work is prolific. And we had this amazing hour where we just played in this room for the sake of it, not because we wanted anything, the job or whatever. That all just dissolved. And I thought, I might actually get this role because the woman opposite me has the same work ethic as me, has the same kind of reason of being here. Anyway, luckily enough, I did get the role. And from the very first scene we shot on the ship's deck, I remember she looked up at me and with her cheeky, sparkly face, and I thought, here we go. And Sarah and Elizabeth were just really batonaging. It was a game of we each had these pretend swords and we would play with each other like children, which I really loved. It had a joyfulness to it as well as a kind of threat. And then that threat rose and rose, and that's Bevan Lee. His ability to wrangle those two women I thought was spectacular. And it continues to be spectacular in season 4. I have to say, Elizabeth and Sarah's relationship in the season we're shooting now is even more complicated and interesting and fabulous to play than it ever has been, because we mustn't forget that Sarah's... Do they know? No?
Well, 3.
3. Oh, maybe. Right. Spoiler alert. So it was never hard to work on that relationship, because every time Noni and I would meet each other, it was like that first time is what I'm trying to get back to. It was 2 actors in a room wanting to play as many flavors as you possibly could, understanding that nobody is one thing. And that's what Noni's so good at with Elizabeth. She's not any one thing. She's like my mother-in-law. You know, I never know what I'm going to get, and it could be positive or it could be negative. But as they come closer and closer together and almost become family, then I think actually season 4 and season 5 will be the most interesting we've ever seen of Sarah and Elizabeth. Hopefully there's a season 5. We'll see. But that right now we are right down into the marrow of who these two women are. And so, yeah, I think Bevan always thought it was a love story between these two. That was always what it was meant to be. And so every time we come together, it's really special, I think. It certainly is playing it. So.
Well, we love both of you. We love that people were just a little upset to see Elizabeth seem to become loving all of a sudden, but once they've settled in, we've really seen them evolve,
Yes.
and it's quite nice to see. Jane Sullivan is in beautiful Atlanta, Georgia. Jane, say hello to Marta.
Hello, Marta.
Hello.
I'm coming to see you September 7th. I've got my ticket for Gloria.
No.
Yes, all the way from Atlanta. Oh, yeah.
Be sure to let me know and we'll have a drink afterwards.
All right. So,
Yeah.
I want to make sure you're not burnt out by then, but you've got a long filming season, then you go straight into Gloria, and then hopefully if you keep the same schedule as last year, you'll go straight into Janet King. So going back to what you mentioned before, how do you pace yourself? Do you get enough downtime? And in your downtime, do you have a guilty pleasure that you'll admit to?
I have to say, and it's not that interesting, but my children really are my guilty pleasure these days. And I think we're at a point where we all just want to be together a lot. They're losing a lot of teeth at the moment. I'm writing a lot of tooth fairy notes. That keeps me up later than anything else, trying to come up with a new name for a tooth fairy.
What's the going rate for teeth these days in Australia?
$2.
Okay.
$2. Look, I think it's okay. I don't work as much on season 4. It's really spread out. The ensemble is getting a really good go at it, which I think is fantastic because they're all great characters and they need to be explored. So I do have 2 or 3 days where I'm plotting Janet King season 3.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I am able to do that. And I don't know, I like working. I think it's, in this country, we don't make enough product. So I love momentum and I love that it's all happening right now. And soon I'll be out of work and wanting to Skype just to have a chat because no one talks to me anymore. So
Yeah, I don't guess you'll be doing Jack Irish anymore.
they might.
Oh.
You never know. It did go very well. So yeah, but I've been over to America and I'm heading to Washington in beginning of November for a place to call home. There's a marketplace on over there that Acorn TV are bringing me over for. So that's exciting. So I feel like the world is getting bigger.
Speaking of Acorn,
Thank you.
you should know that we watch not only A Place to Call Home on Acorn, but we get to see Janet King and Jack Irish, and
Yeah.
we're hoping for Crownies, and I hope to meet you in Washington when you get here as well. We're excited to have you come in and meet us. I'm going to go to Simon. Are you there? I think Simon, we got lost, but he'll come back. I want to ask you about, Jane asked about downtime. We know that you're very involved in the whole issue of refugees, something that all of us, no matter where we live, are confronted with that issue and how we as a society can handle this awful, awful problem. Can you share with us a little bit about how you got involved, what you do, and what Australia's policy is now about embracing these refugees?
Yeah, it's a really hot topic here, and I don't mean to belittle it by any means because I think it's we're talking about people's lives, children, women, and men. We have an election coming in 2 weeks, and it's a very at the moment, both parties, Labor and Liberal, are holding the line of that there will be no resettlement in this country, and that's to stop the boats, apparently. It's to stop the people smugglers from feeling like there's an opportunity to make money. So there's only offshore processing, and that hasn't worked. There's been a lot of tension and a lot of self-harming going on in those places as well. So it's a terrible, terrible situation. How did I get involved? I remember I went out to Villawood about, it's probably about 20 years ago now, unfortunately. And I met the refugees because everyone was talking about it and I wanted to know what was going on. And there was a whole lot of people with their families, with their children, sort of locked behind barbed wire and in a no man's land. So since then, they've managed to get all the children out. Australia spoke up and they're back in the community, but on temporary visas, going to school and hopefully having some kind of a childhood. What do? I highlight the issue. I work with UNHCR, which is a different thing. The refugees internationally, they're already on the ground helping those people. And I just occasionally will speak up and turn up and speak at a breakfast, try and raise some money. In fact, there's some people coming on set to a place to call home who gave a couple of $1,000s to have lunch with me, which goes directly to UNHCR and what they do. So I try to do that sort of thing. My time poorness means that I can't really go to these places, and there is nowhere to go here in Australia anymore because they've shut it all down, and in fact you're not allowed to enter them because they don't want any record of what's actually going on. I also work with Save the Children, which is a group who works domestically as well as nationally, and that's mainly to do with disadvantaged children, which unfortunately tends to be Indigenous kids in this country, and just kids who've fallen through the cracks. So that's as simple as turning up to a soup bus on a Friday night in Glebe and getting some photos taken and get it put in the picture, a picture in the newspaper, and then people give money. So I think we raised a couple of grand the other weekend and so on. I did get to a remote community with them, which was incredible, and took my children, which is more of a gift for us, I have to say. These people have gone through a lot and continue to, but their spirit and sense of humour and hope and belief and love of human contact is unsurpassable. So it really is an honour for me and a privilege to even be involved with these very courageous people, not only on the ground working for refugees, but also the refugees themselves. And in a way, the Indigenous people are also treated like refugees, and yet this is their place. So we work hard on it, and we keep going. And I do what I can in the time that I have, but it's not nearly enough. And I'm hoping when I have more time to try and go to these places more and do what I can. I basically just ask what they need. I'm only an actor after all.
Marta, to go back to the Sarah and the Holocaust line of the story, your husband, both in the series and in real life, he's my new favorite actor.
Isn't he wonderful?
I was not aware of him before, but I was so taken, as were hundreds and thousands of fans, with his portrayal of Renee. As a matter of fact, we'd love to have him on a Skype call and talk to him. He was really just so spectacular, and we were torn. We really wanted George and Sarah to be together, but Renee was such a deep and beautiful character that we didn't want him to die. Um,
I didn't either.
can you share with us what it was like to, did you audition together? What was it like to work together? And how did you separate being on the set every day and working in these highly emotional scenes and then going home and being husband and wife and mommy and daddy?
Ben didn't audition. It was Bevan's idea. He came up to me after the end of season 2 and he said, if Renee ever were to resurface, I said, what? I thought he was dead. How would you feel about Ben? And I said, well, that would be wonderful. He'd seen Ben's work on stage and he'd done a couple of TV things. So, yeah, he stepped into it. And I couldn't agree with you more, actually, Susan. I found him to be, it was really difficult what they asked of him, actually, that role, to be as damaged and kind of quiet and unaffected by what was going on around him. His, traumatic PTSD, really, and then this sort of lodgement of something in his brain which was creating a kind of psychotic behavior. And he just played it with such humility and charisma and vulnerability and truth. I was really, some days, I'd say, that was really beautiful, darling. You go, oh, thanks. Having said that, he really is one of the best actors of his generation and has won, awards from theatre shows here in Sydney, but he isn't that well known. Working with him was easy, physically, emotionally. One of the reasons I married him was because when he smiles, he gets these little lines under his eyes. And I thought they were just delicious. So I used to look at them all the time when we were working, and that would just make me fall in love with him again. I just need to have some water. Sorry. This place is very dusty. Thank you. So, yeah, it was easy. We tried to do things physically all the time. So because you didn't have much dialogue, we would always look at each other spatially. How far away were we from each other? How a touch or a tableau could say more than anything we could possibly convey through the eyes, harking back to that, feeding off each other. We fed off each other's bodies as well as each other's eyes, which I don't think you can do with every actor because you don't know every actor's bodies like Ben and I know each other's. So I remember we did a whole scene with me standing behind him, just cradling him. We did a scene where we were dancing the whole time and then I folded into him. We did a scene, we just kept trying things like that. So it was more of a dance than a kind of face-off, if you like, which I thought gave him the mobility and that he needed because he was so trapped inside his mind and his heart. And then later on, when he started getting very violent, that was quite hard. I remember he pushed me up against the wall once and was and kind of grabbed me, and I felt completely safe in that moment because it's acting after all. But I remember thinking it was wonderful how imposing he was. He's quite a tall man, and but not muscly. He's just got power. And then he choked her. I remember that was a bit sad. But his death was absolutely, it took my breath away. He played dead better than I was. I couldn't breathe the first time I saw it. I was beside myself, and there was a few extras in the scene playing nurses. And I was so hysterical over him, and I think the cameras weren't even rolling. It was a rehearsal. And I had to take a minute and I said, I'm so sorry about this, because I'm usually quite vigilant about that sort of thing. I said to the extras, this is actually my husband in real life. And they were like, oh no. So there was this lovely kind of group hug in the room, and then we just got on with it. And I had to do it like 25 times. And by the end, I was like, I wish you were dead because this is killing me. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, and I found the beautiful writing of burying him. That was one of the most satisfying sequences I've ever had on A Place to Call Home. Just marking each of those moments, the grave, the dirt hitting the coffin, I'll never forget. Roy standing there and him putting the dirt on, and her frenetic behavior before it, and then just these men who came into this house, these Jewish men, and they sang to her, and I sat on this chair and I just wept and wept and wept. So it really was like it was a burial, actually, of his character, for me, for Sarah. For me. I still miss him, actually. I shoot season 4 and I miss him. I miss him terribly, and they pay that. I do visit Renee, not too much, but enough.
Well, the scenes of Sarah sitting Shiva and the men coming and people just saying, how is it that these strange men traveled all of this way without knowing this person? And that was such an authentic moment, because that is exactly what happens in the Jewish community. If someone dies, there is a minyan and people come from wherever, and it was portrayed just so authentically and beautifully. Everybody should see it, because they try to portray the Jewish experience all over television and film, and I watch and I say, what are they thinking? This has nothing to do with it. But what you did, and what your directors and your writers and all the extras, it was such an authentic moment that everyone should hold. That should be the benchmark for how Judaism is portrayed in the media, to just see those scenes. So
I think it's interesting, Susan, sorry to interrupt, but
No.
this observing of their traditions and their beliefs and their contact, that's what's been so powerful for me, and why that's how Sarah reaches to that whole community, to that experience of the Holocaust, to her husband, to their family. And I think the show has been so true to that, and see it as such an important part of the show. It's enriching for everyone. And you could feel it. You could feel it on the set. And this is the thing. We know when it works, because it could be on stage. And for me, it's when I'm working and I feel something and I feel like I could pick it up and put it on a stage, and I could have 900 people watching live with no tricks, and they would be as affected in row 900 as in row 1. And that, to me, should be more and more on television. And that's certainly what I aim to do in all the shows that I'm in, is create an experience that doesn't need a close-up. In fact, I hate close-ups. I think they're really cheap. And I think our televisions are big enough now that we no longer need to come in here, because I don't know, we're more advanced or something. We've seen enough. We know how to place it in our storytelling scope. So yeah, for me, that was a theatre moment that I knew while we were shooting. I thought, this is going to be knockout. You could just keep on the wide. I think they did for most of it.
And I think Anton is dying to ask one more question. Are you, Anton? Are you there? I'm giving you the floor one more time.
In a Dutch way, he's dying.
Yeah. Do you want me to speak Dutch to you or not?
No, I don't understand it, unfortunately.
But you can speak some Dutch, don't you?
Een klein beetje.
Yeah, well, that's good enough. Well, I just wanted to say that the Dutch fans are so happy that you're there. You know, they love you and they give their greetings. And I have one special greeting from my brother who has Down syndrome, and he's a big fan of Sarah too. And he doesn't speak English or can understand English, but he always watches the show and he's enjoying what you're doing. So
Thank you so much. What's his name?
Yeah. Marco.
Marco. Thank you, yes. Marco.
Yeah.
Marta, I'm not big on spoilers because that ruins everything, but we really are terrific at speculation.
Yeah.
Can you just give us a little something, a little nugget of what we can look forward to from Sarah? Nothing specific, but in the broad sense of what we're going to see from her next season.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it makes you reflect on what you've done. Sarah will always walk her path, and she's lost someone twice. But I think it's time for her to face her future, which is possibly her child. And there's a lot of things that need to be righted. There's been a lot of wrongs. And it's time to place Regina where she needs to be.
Hung on a tree.
There is a mythic element to season 4 where the wrongs are righted, and that's really Sarah's journey. And I think it's very well placed. Bevanley, as you know, has returned, and it's a slow burn, but he invades your dreams, and I think that is his beauty and his triumph, really, as a writer. So I'm hoping that, people will see their own lives in season 4 more and more.
Another favorite, I know you have to go, and I want to give Kathy Bowles, one of your super fans from Australia, who said she didn't have a question, but I certainly want to give her a chance to say hello to you. But before I do, I just want to ask you about one more character. Aunt Peg really, she ties Sarah to her past, especially, well, Renee is gone, but he wasn't really her real past. Her real past was her life as a Catholic girl with a mother who she had conflict with. And Aunt Peg really gave Sarah a sense of history and where she came from, and allowed us to have a little peek into her childhood. We heard that the actress was ill, and you don't have to tell us whether or not we're going to see her again, but do you know if she's well and that she knows that she's well loved?
She does. She knows she's well loved, and she's very well loved by me as well. And I have to say that her courageous performance in season 3 is something that will never leave me. Those few days we spent together in Aunt Peg's house, that's all I can really say.
Okay, thank you so much. Kathy, say hello to Marta, and we're going to let her go back to work.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, I can. How are you doing?
We have to keep the microphone off to avoid feedback most of the time because we're recording it here.
Okay.
I just want to say that I saw you in Crownies a few years ago, and you were a real standout amongst everybody there. So it's really amazing to be able to talk to you. And I can't believe that they took so long to recognise you here. And just love seeing you. It's a real privilege to talk to you and listen to you. And this has
Marta?
been great. I've loved listening to you today.
Marta, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us. This has been recorded, and we're going to post it in a few minutes on our page, and I'm sure there'll be lots of discussion afterwards. We look forward to season 4, hopefully season 5. We look forward to seeing Sarah Adams, and we look forward to seeing more of Marta Dusseldorp in all kinds of television and film and wherever we can. Your work is stellar, and we're just so grateful to you for having shared so much of yourself with your audience.
My absolute pleasure. And I apologize in advance. I'm not on Facebook. Otherwise, I would join in on the chat. But that's, yeah, one of the reasons for my silence.
That's okay. We see you on Twitter and we
Yeah.
see you on Instagram, and every time you retweet something from us, we get all excited. So we feel connected with you. I
Thank you
hope,
for your time and your questions. I really appreciate it.
please, I hope that I'm going to ask Vanessa to please ask your husband if he'd be willing to do a chat with us. There's so much interest in him and his character, and in him in general. Now that we know who he is, we want to also see him in more performances. So our love and best wishes to you. I look forward to meeting you when you come to the States, and onward.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here and being up late at night. I really appreciate that. I'm sorry about that.
That's quite all right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye
you.
from everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
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 Okay, everybody. I don't know what happened to Simon.